Okay, we'll start review again from Sif Vov. Sif Vov, the dinim of Ein Mevatlin Isil Hachila by a Isil Rabon. Isil Devrayim, correct. Isil Devrayim, the Mechaber says, a Isil Rabbonon, Ein Ma'avin Loisoy Biodayim Kilavatli. You're not allowed to take an Isil Rabbonon to mix it up with other Heterim, Biodayim, to be Mevatli. You can't do that, okay? Now, I want to let you right away that the Shach says that there are different kinds of Isil Rabbonon. There's an Isil Rabbonon that has a Shadish Min HaTorah, it has a similarity of Din Torah, and the Rabbonon added something to it. But then there's Isil Rabbonon that's totally, the Rabbonon came up with a new Isil, new Takana. Says the Shach, no matter what kind of Isil Rabbonon, it's the same Din. Why? Because we're going to pass like the Ramah. We're going to pass like the Ramah that any Isil Rabbonon is exactly like Din Torah. So it doesn't make a difference what level of Isil of Din Rabbonon is. Any Isil Rabbonon has the same level as Isil Torah. Continue inside now the Mechaber. The also came. If he took the Isil Rabbonon and it was Mevatlet. B'mezid, if he did it deliberately, also you can't use this mixture. Abo. The major also, the Shach says, just like beforehand, in the previous sif, we learned the major also for who? For the person that did it, for the person that it was done for, but other people is allowed to. The same thing will be here. What does it mean? Major also the same deen as sif hey. Also only for the person that did it and the person that's done for. But achenim is mutter. Continues in Mechaber, Avol im nafal me'atzmai. If this Isil Rabbanon on its own, I didn't push it be a dime, it fell into heter, but the ein beheter kidei levatle, the heter does not have 60 times this Isil Rabbanon, but I didn't put it in the it fell in on its own. By mistake it fell in. But once it's in there, there's no shishim of the heter to be vatal. Says the Mechaber, look at it, marbe all of mevatle. You now it fell in. In other words, once it started already, the beetle, the tarubis, the Isil Rabbanon fell in on its own by mistake. In heter, and its own shishim, and then you can take lachatchila, add more heter to make it bottle deliberately. That's the din of the shita of the Mechaber. Right away, the Ramah says, sure. That means deliberately, bekavona. You take the Isur, you throw it into heter. No. Right. Hago, the Yeshayim de'ei levatel Isur drabonon. The Hago says you're not allowed to levatel drabonon. Oilo hoisiv olav, or adding to it. You cannot add to it. Kimoi b'sur deraisa, just as you tell it. And that's the meaning of Eilishani. So the Ramah Paskis Machmir, Isur Torah has the same din like Isur Rabbanon, has the same like Isur Torah. The Mechaber says by Isur Rabbanon, you're not allowed to be Mevatel. However, if it fell in on its own, you're allowed to be Marbe, you're allowed to add. Says the Ramah, no. Isur Torah, Isur Rabbanon has the same din like Isur Torah. You can't like a chila be Mevatel it, and if it fell in, you can't be Marbe, you can't add nothing. The same level as it did Torah. That's the shita of the Ramah, and that's what he paskins. But the Mechaber's psak din is you're allowed to add. What's the source of the Mechaber's psak din? So this the Mechaber's source and the Ramah is an argument between the Rashba and the Rosh. The Rashba and the Rosh. I'm going to say it about Peh because many of the things I'll say about Peh instead of saying it inside. The Taz is going to bring down the source of this din. What's the mocker of this din of the Mechaber that once it fell in, I'm allowed to add? Where do you take it from? So there's the Gemara in Masechta Beitza. The Gemara in Masechta Beitza has the following din. In Masechta Beitza it talks about Muktzah and Neulot. Muktzah Noel means something that was born that happened that was not before Shabbos or before Yom Tiv, was not set aside to use it for Shabbos and Yom Tiv. You're not allowed to use it. That's what the din is in Pesach Beitza. Beitza should know to be Yom Tiv. If an egg that was just came out now, you cannot eat it today. You have because it's Noel, it's something Muktzah. You have to wait till after Yom Tiv. So here's a case of din that happened in the Gemara and Beitza. Here's the din. You're allowed to cook on Yom Tov. But how do you cook? You have to have logs of wood, right? You have to logs of wood. We have a wood oven. So I have to prepare before Yom Tov piece of wood that I'm going to use this wood, not for construction. This wood is designated for my oven. Fine. What happens if I have a dekel, a date tree, that a branch fell down on Yom Tov? I'm not allowed to use this branch because it fell down today. It wasn't prepared before Yom Tov. So it's muktzah. It's muktzah. It's no that cannot use it. So the Gemara has this scenario: a branch of a date tree fell off the date tree and it fell on into my oven. What kind of oven I have? It fell into my oven. On the place of my oven, there's a little bit of wood, but the wood that's there is not roiv. It's not majority of the one that fell down. What do I do? What do I do? So the Mishnah says in the Sechta Beitza, Marbolov, add more pieces of logs of wood that you prepared before Yom Tov. Add that to the pile of wood that's in your oven now. And now roiv is going to be wood that you prepared before Yom Tov. If roiv is going to prepare before Yom Tov, so even though there's one piece of wood, a branch fell in from the muktzah piece of wood, it fell down today, you're allowed to cook on this oven now. So what is the Gemara paskin there? Marbe olav. I'm allowed to add. It fell down. After it fell down, I added more piece of logs of wood. It's okay. Clear Mishnah. So that's what the Rashba says. So we learn from this din that if a Isur Rabbanon, what's over there? Muktzah, Isur Rabbanon. So we learn from that din, that case of Masechta Beitza, that Isur Rabbanon, you're not allowed to deliberately be mevatel it. But if it already fell into heter, I'm allowed to add to heter. Clear eye. The Rosh that case, because when I'm using that log that fell down from the tree, the date tree fell down today on Yom Tov. When I'm using it today, how am I benefiting from the log of muktzah? I'm benefiting from the log itself, or after it's burned and consumed, and now my oven is hot and warm because the fire made it hot. That's what I'm benefiting. So the Rosh says, how could you compare this case to a regular Yisud Rabbanon? When am I allowed to use this muktzah piece of meat, a piece of log, and add more to it? Because in an oven, how do you bake in an oven or cook in an oven? I make the oven hot. How do you make it hot? You burn wood there, like a wood oven. Once the temperature in the oven has became hot from the wood is not there anymore. It's ashes already. Now I can start baking. So when am I benefiting from the wood? After it's gone. So I'm not benefiting from the muktzah. Then it's okay to be marbolo. However, in a case of any isur, what? Because after all, you see. So the Rosh, that's the Rosh's chiluk. So the Rosh says, if you're benefiting from the wood only after it's gone, then marbolo. But if it's a case that we have in our Gemara and our Shulchan Aruch over here, what's our Shulchan? This is the Rabbanon fell into heter. Go ahead and be marber. But when you be marber, in our case here, I'm going to benefit from the Isur Rabbanon now, not when it's gone. So how do you compare? How could you learn out the din of marbolo but the Rabbanon of Isur Rabbanon from the case of the wood? You can't learn out. That's why the Rosh, which is the opinion of the Ramah, the Yesh Shomrim, ain't levatel Isur Rabbanon. You cannot add to it. Why? Only by the wood you can add to it. You can't learn from that din to any other case. That is the source of the din of Marbolov, the mocker, and that's a machlokes between the Rashba and the Rosh. The Rashba says it's a good raya, a good source for anything else, and Rosh says you cannot compare. Yeah.
The wood over in the case, you're making use of the wood only after it's done.
Correct. Yeah.
And
here I'm using it as it is. I'm being mevatel it and using it. I'm not burning it. I'm eating it. Now this is basically the first half of Taz Yud Beis. The second half of Taz Yud Beis and the Shach Yutes are gonna ask the same question. The same question. What's the same question? The Mechaber just passing here, not like the Ramah. What did the Mechaber pass? By Yisud Rabbanon, Mar Ba'olov Umevatlei. If the Yisud Rabbanon fell into a mixture, you can add more heter and Umevatl. That's what the Mechaber paskins. So the Taz and the Shach are going to ask a question from a din that the Mechaber himself paskins in Erechaim. What's the din he paskins in Erechaim? Chanukah, the leftover oil that's left over in the menorah, you're not allowed to use for oil. Why? Because that oil was designated for mitzvah. So if it's designated mitzvah, you cannot use it. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to make a fire and let it burn out. Again, not the oil in the bottle that you bought a gallon of olive oil and you have left over. Now we're not talking about that. We're talking about the oil left over in the menorah itself. You're not allowed to use it. Why? Because oil that was designated for mitzvah, you can't use it for chulin. That's a Darbonin case. So the Mechaber paskin, what happens if the oil that's left over in my menorah got mixed in with regular mundane oil of my kitchen, oil of my rest of I got mixed in? What am I supposed to do? Says the Mechaber, you're not allowed to add more oil to it. You can't do that. So the Taz and the Shach both ask the same question on the Mechaber. Why over here you say Yisud Rabbanon Mar Ba'olov? You're allowed to add. And there by the Chanukah candle, by the Chanukah oil, you say you're not allowed to add. What's the difference? So the Shach says that somebody told him that maybe there by the Chanukah, because the oil was designated for mitzvah, that's why it's more chomer. That's why it's more chomer that you shouldn't be able to add to minvat that. That's what the Shach says on the Shach test. But he says to that answer the doichik. To say that if it's a mitzvah, be more machmer. Manusha, is it a din rabbanon and din rabbanon that mixed into a heter? Could you add? You cannot add. So the Shach and the Taz both remain with a tzorach iyon in this case. A tzorach iyon. Why? By any issue rabbanon we say you're allowed to add, and by Chanukah we say not allowed to add more choil oil to be mevatel the oil shel mitzvah. So mitzvah, okay. That's what. So and you're allowed to add over here. Fakir, your svod is fakir. Gewaldig. The Pri Megadim says this svod. The Pri Megadim says, you know why over there you can't add the oil? You know why? Because there's dovish yesh lematirin. There's another cloud we're going to learn in Siman Kuf Gimel Kuf Dalet. Dover sheyesh lematirim. If there's an item that has another way to be mated, why should you be mevatel it? We're not mevatel it. Where's Dover sheyesh lematirim? That oil? You know the people says, wait till next year Chanukah. Keep it for next year Chanukah. What? It's not different. Yeah, it's different oil. First of all, the Shaila, if the Chanukah candle is the same level of mitzvah as Chanukah, not the same level. So that's why he says that's slaughtered. Another reason why he wants to answer this question, another reason why by Chanukah candles you cannot add the oil to mivatel. And here he's saying Mar Ba'olov. Why? Because there is yesh matirin. Keep it the next year and use it Okay. Share page. Where's my page?
Share screen.
Yeah. Okay. No, there's this one. This screen. Okay. Got it. Square. You got it? Okay. Next paragraph of the Ramah is going to talk about the din of Choyzer B'Neir. The first paragraph with the Mechaber and the Ramah is Machlekes about Isur the Rabbanon, Ma'arvin, Ma'arvin Isur talking about it connects to the new piece, and now there's a larger piece of Isur or not. In other words, what do we look at Bittul? Bittul means that's not there or it's sleeping. Let's look at this dinner, the second paragraph of the Ramah. Isur Shen is battle, and Isur became bottle. Kigoin Shoy Shishim Kinegder. I had an Isur, fell into 60 heter. Perfectly okay. Shishim is Mivatul. We have the din. Vinitaiseboy Acharkach Min Ha Isur Adishim. Let's say I had a kezayis of chaylev. Let's talk about chaylev. Kezayis of chaylev, or let's say we'll maybe talk about kezayis of not kosher meat. There'll be a difference. A kezayis of not kosher meat fell to 60 kezayis of kosher meat. Everything's bottled. Now a second kezayis of not kosher meat fell into this pot. What do I say? Do I say now that the second kezayis is also bottled? Because the first it's shishim, and now the shishim ve'echot connected. Or do we say the second kezayis of Isur unites with the first kezayis, and now we have two kezayis of Isur, two kezayis of Isur connected 60 heter, not in this bottle. That's the concept of Choyz V'Neir. Oh, very good. Let's go. This is exactly what he's going to say here. Isur in this battle, ki goy shoy shishim, kinegdoi v'netoyse be'acharkach. You had shishim and another piece of Isur fell in min ha'isur adishim from the same Isur. Why? The Shach and Taz are going to explain this din. If let's say the first Isur fell in was dam, kezayis dam, there was this battle with shishim of kosher, and then fell in kezayis chaylev. What do we say there? We had in the previous Siman Ches, Isur mivatel Isur. So then there's no Choyz V'Neir. Here we're talking about the same Isur fell in again. Another kezayis dam or another kezayis chaylev, the same Isur fell in again. Says the Ramah, Choyzer V'Neir, the previous kezayis that was this battle awakens up now again. The Nesar, and it becomes also, it unites. The new kezayis with the old kezayis unite and awakens up the old kezayis that was this battle. Now I have two kezayis of Isur, and I don't have 60 connected both of them. I only have 60 connected two kezayisim. In order to be mivat, I need 120 connected two kezayisim. Therefore, are also. But Choyz V'Neir agrees. But the next statement, he'll have a question. Now, the Ramah is going to say here, this din of Choyz V'Neir, the Ramah is going to say, even in a case when I have reasoning to say that it should not be Choyz V'Neir. How's that? There's going to be three stanzas in this next Ramah. Look at the case. Loishna min b'minay. Every line Loishna is going to be the way to learn it is zu vein tzarich leimer zu. We go to the lesser chiddush and then for sure the other one. So look what the Ramah says. Well, not only if it's min b'minay means that the first mixture was two same meats, the same meat, same flavor. So there's no transfer of flavor there, right? It was min b'minay. Veloishna min b'sheni mini. For sure, min b'sheni mini. Why? Because which one is more likely to say Choyz V'Neir? In logic. Min b'sheni mini is more likely to say Choyz V'Neir. Why? Because now I have another 5 ounces or another ounce of the flavor, of the old flavor. So the flavor becomes stronger. Min b'mina, there was never a flavor there. So in other words, this is what the Ramah is saying. Not only min b'mina, we say Choyz V'Neir, surely min b'eini mina is Choyz V'Neir. One stanza. Next stanza of the Ramah. Loishna lach that if it's lach, it's moist. So moist gives out the flavor. How does flavor transfer from two different ingredients when it's wet? So it's wet. Even if it's dry, we say that what? That it's the chayzev v'neir. Why? Because the first time really did not mix properly. Chayzev v'neir.
You just said the second half is going to be how much more so. The dry you don't learn out from wet.
I'll still explain after finish all three cases. Good. A third case. Loishna noida bentayim. There's no difference if he found out after the first time that the Issa fell in. We're talking about a case that Issa fell in at 60. The first time Issa fell in, he knew about it. So l'chayr, I would say he knew about it. This is battle. The time, or if he did not know about it, it's more likely to say that the two Issers should accumulate. The two Issers should accumulate. So let's look at this whole Ramah and the whole picture. The Ramah was going to say here, which this is going to be the big argument of the Shach. The Ramah is going to say here that there could be three different cases when I should not say Chayz V'Neir. Which one? Min, what? Or each one. Min b'minay, there's no transfer of flavor. So when a new piece of min fell in there, what did it add? The first mixture was also min b'minay. There's no transfer of flavor. But min b'minay, we say you have to be mevatel anyway, even though there's no transfer of flavor. But what added to this dish when a new piece of min fell in there? There's nothing new. There's nothing new flavor added there. So there's a logic to say that min b'minay we don't say chayz v'neir because nothing happened here. One case. Yavish b'yavish. What you said before. Yavish b'yavish means I have one not kosher burger and two kosher burgers. Roiv, bottle b'roiv. There's no mixture of flavor. Yavish b'yavish, there's no mixture of flavor. I have to be bottle b'roiv. But there's no mixture of flavor. So what happens now that another piece of Isser, another burger of Isser fell in there? What added now? There's no transfer of flavor. So I'll have another piece. Let's say it didn't fall into 1 and 2. The one Isser fell into 5 heter. And now another Isser fell in there. What added here? There's no mixture of flavor. Yavish b'yavish, we'll still explain. There's a special reason why the Chacham said they need bit, but there's no transfer of flavor. So what happened? What new happened when the new piece Isser fell in there? So there's another reason why I should say that it's not chayz v'neir. Nevertheless, the Ramah says in all these cases chayz v'neir. Okay. The third case, noida or loy noida. Once I knew about the first mixture, I had a piece of Easter fell into my pot, and the 60 times of the vegetables versus the Easter. Bottle. Now something else came in. Again, should be bottle. Cold, comma, bottle. Every time it fell in, something should be bottle. If I knew about it, if I did not know about it, there should be a different din. If you remember, we had earlier a din in Hilchos Basar B'Cholam and Siman Tzadik Dalet about putting in the spoon twice. So we had that din. If I knew between, so the first bittul became bottle, and now it's a new case. If I did not know between, then it accumulates together. I need two shishims versus the 2 dunkings of the spoon. The Siman Tzadik Dalet. Over here is different. Over here is different. The Taz is going to explain why over there we said that if you did not know about it and I put it in twice, then I need 2 times shishim. The Chal Paskin there in Tzadik Dalet. And over here, the Ramah says if I did not know about it, we say choice of a near, it awakens the chaylev. Why should it awaken here different? So the Taz is going to explain a big difference between the kaf, the spoon, and here. When the spoon went in twice, was there an additional isser that came into the pot? No. The same spoon that went in the first time went in the second time. There's no other things. It's the same thing. Mashaken here, a new kazayis came in. Here's Mocham. I had 1 kazayis of meat fell in and another kazayis of meat. 2 kazayis over here. Yeah. Yavish. The taste.
all the taste out of that desire.
Yeah.
So therefore, the tzaddik doesn't exist in that.
The time is not there.
So how is it? How when another desire of also comes back in, and all of a sudden reawakens and reabsorbs all the taste back into it?
It connects to the new desires. Connects to all the. It does exist. It's very weak. It's diluted in 60 hectare. But now that I have another desire to give out flavor, so that when the second desire spreads itself, it connects to all the taste that's given in, and now it's a stronger taste. That's the first minute. So, in which case we're talking about?
No, I'm saying, well, the whole thing. Let's say somebody has one, he has shisha.
Yeah.
Doesn't tell the person who gave it to. Now the person, the same info inside. He has no clue.
Well, in other words, you ask your shaila if a dish was his battle with shishim and you sell it to give somebody else, do you have to tell that person that it was his battle? There's a shaila about that, because some people are machma on their own. I don't want to have this battle. I want to, if it's something that's battle, I don't want to have it. You have to tell the other person that it's kosher because of bittul. But let me tell you, I mentioned a few times already, many of the hechsher companies, when they say when write kosher or bat kosher, it's a lot of bitulim there. There's a lot of bitulim there. Yeah.
But I'm saying in that case, what if, let's say, it happened to be that somebody fell in the same minute, and now it's chayzer in there.
Okay, so it's a shayla, if you don't know about it.
You don't know it.
It could be so the person who gave it to you should have told you this is bottle, this is kosher, but it's bottle b'shishim. If I didn't know, but I didn't tell you, you know about it. Yeah.
Rob once told said that he asked him, the wine company can
It's enough. Whatever we allow to you.
add another
I want to mention another machlokes of the Achrayim. When it says noida, it said that a person knew about the first tarubas. The machlokes of Achrayim mean noida means that I knew about it, the owner of the dish, or noida means that you knew about it and you went to a rav and the rav passed that it's mutter already because of shishim. What does noida mean? Noida means that you went through the whole process and the rav told you it's shishim and it's kosher. That's called noida. Or even if you know about it before you asked the rav the shaila, you knew that it fell in there. That's called noida. Machlokes of Achrayim. Correct.
So if the Indian bittul
Right.
isn't really bittul, it's just spread out so much that so it's also a little tiny bit that's in there. Why would there be an allowance to eat these things?
So again, shishim only takes away time.
It's not there.
So I'll explain the logic, about very strong logic. There's a Ran that says, to answer your question, the Ran says, who says taste is also? Maybe only the Isra is also. Who said taste is also? Because we know tam ki'iker. The taste is like the presence of the Isra itself. Comes the Ran and explains what kind of tam is called ki'iker? A strong tam. But a tam that's diluted in shishim, that tam is not ki'iker. See what I'm saying? If we're talking about if your question is about the bittul baroiv, is a different question. Bittul baroiv means I have a burger, not kosher burger, and 2-3 kosher burgers. But that said, everything is mutter. If you recognize it, they're not kosher, take it out. If you don't recognize it, it's kosher. Roiv. But that the roiv does not take away tam. Tam is the husband. The logic behind bittul b'tam, says the Ran, because such a tam that's so weak, that's not a tam that they're about to take the acid. Yeah. There's not a suffix. He says such a kind of tam in this case. That's the tam. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we had here now a l'chayra shtarka machlokes. The Ramah says chayzer means that even if the new piece of Isser is not adding flavor, how? It's min b'minah. And the first mixture is also min b'minah. Or he says, another case, yavish b'yavish. It's not adding flavor. Nevertheless, says Choshev V'Neir. Comes the Shach and a lengthy Shach, which is going to be a page and a half, and the Shach brings rayas, 4 questions, long questions, and he says that Ramah is wrong. Not only that Ramah is wrong, that the Ramah who took this din from in his Teres Chatos, which is the Sefer of the Ramah, he brings this mock of the din from the Marai, the Baal Tumas Hadesh and Agoy Sharidura. So the Shach proves that the Ramah learned wrong Pshat, had a wrong version of the Agoy Sharidura. It doesn't make sense that if a new Isser that came there that doesn't add flavor, why should it be Choshev V'Neir? Mainly if new flavor came in there. So I can say like before, like we can see lots of Shaila, new flavor connects with the old flavor. Now this flavor is a stronger flavor now. Asur. But if there's no new flavor, so what happened now that I should say Choshev V'Neir? So the Shach clearly argues with the Ramah, and he brings many rayas that the din of Choshev V'Neir cannot be not by min b'minay, not by yovish b'yovish. Not only that, he says, but he wants to pass. He said that he says I brought rayas to that, but he won't go so far. It could be by min b'minay, min or yovish b'yovish. Not only the second piece is not going to be Choshev V'Neir, but the first piece I can use as part of the shishim to be mevatel the second piece. That's how much he argues with the Ramah. The Ramah says Choshev V'Neir, even though there's no new taste over here. He says it doesn't make sense. He says, but he says that prat we can negotiate. He says, but the first the nekuda that a no new addition of taste should be Choshev V'Neir disagrees. It's not. It's nothing added here. In other words, I saw one of the Achrayim learned shot. If you add 0 to 0, is there anything it's going to add to it? There's nothing here. Non-flavor to non-flavor, it doesn't add up anything. If you have an ounce of flavor and you're adding another ounce of flavor, it's a stronger flavor now. But 0 to 0, nothing is added. You can't add. It's only if it happens. Correct? Because if it doesn't add taste, if it doesn't add taste, min b'minay or yovish b'yovish. Okay. So yes, it has to be reiv heter. Reiv is the raise. The reiv is not taste. Now the shach is going to give here a machlokes of 2 reasoning. Let's talk about yovish b'yovish. Yovish b'yovish, as I mentioned before, there's no mixture of flavor. Burgers, dry, nothing. It's only the same pan. I mentioned last time that evidence, look at the Sichas says, Tarubas Yovish B'Yovish is in your mind. It's not in the pot. In the pot, there's 3 pieces of burgers there. One is kosher, one is not kosher, 2 is kosher. Where's the mixture? The mixture is in your mind because you don't know which one is a kosher, which is not kosher. It's not a real mixture. That's the Rebbe shot in the Yovish B'Yovish. However, so the Rabbanon said, if we're going to make different kind of shiurim, Lach B'Yovish needs shishin. Yovish b'yovish does not need anything, so a person might get confused and say, you know what? We don't need shishin even by ilach b'yovish. So the Rabbanan said the following: Yovish b'yovish, the Rabbanan said, min b'minay. Min b'minay says the Rabbanan doesn't need anything, right? The Rabbanan did not add anything. Min b'minay yovish b'yovish don't have to have anything. Roiv is mevatel. Gnug. Min be'einay minay, 2 dry pieces. One is meat, one is vegetables, or whatever it will be. Min be'einay minay. So l'chayr it's dry and it's not mixing each other. Nevertheless, says the Rabbanan said, min be'einay minay, you should need shishin to be vatal. The Rabbanan said that. Minatayres but bitul b'roiv. So the Shach is going to give 2 different reasons why the Rabbanan said Yovish b'yovish min be'einay minay needs shishin. But you have to have cheshbon. One reason is the Rabbanan said if it's Yovish b'yovish, there's no transfer of taste. Correct? It's all dry pieces. However, says it the Shach, we're choishesh. I have here min be'einay minay. Let's say I have meat and vegetables. A mixture here. Shemo yevashlam. Maybe I'm going to cook this whole pot. When I cook this whole pot with water, there's going to be transfer of flavor. Even though originally now it's dry piece of vegetable and a dry piece of meat. Now it's yavish, min be'eini mina, but it's yavish. Now there's no transfer of taste. However, why did the Chachamim say you need shishim? Because maybe this mixture, shema yavashlam, as is, you're going to cook it now. So when I cook it, I'm going to add water. The water is going to make everything soft, and therefore the meat, which is usher, is going to make the vegetables usher. So the Rabbanu said you need shishim. Right? A cover the problem. Right. So that's why. So it says the Shach. If that's the reason that min be'eini minay needs shishim because shem yivashlam, so maybe I can understand that by choizev and the same thing. Min be'eini minay yavish b'yavish. There's no transfer of flavor, so I can understand the whole shash of yavish b'yavish min be'eini minay. That you need shishim shem yivashlam. So the same thing I would say, if a new piece of Isser fell in here, and it's what min be'eini mina, the same reason I can understand by then it should be choiz v'neir. I can understand. Shem yivashlam. Now if I'm going to cook it with two pieces of Isser, it's going to have more Isser. Right? Let's say I had one piece of Isser and Roiv Heter. And now another piece. Shem yivashlam. However, says El Shach, there's another reason why the Chachamim came up with the idea shishim by min be'eini mina yavish b'yavish. What's the other reason? The Chachamim said, you know why? Min yavish b'yavish, it's dry. Piece of vegetables, piece of meat mixed together. Why the Chachamim say we need shishim? And a different reason. The reason is because yachar l'taknon. There's a way to correct this mixture. Why should we mevatel it? Correct the mixture. How do you correct this mixture? Since it's min be'eini mina, it's yavish b'yavish. Why don't you try to recognize which one is the Isser and pull it out? So the Chacham says, I'm not going to be mevatel. It's yavish b'yavish. You're telling me there's no transfer of flavor? True. So no transfer of flavor. Nevertheless, do your best to recognize the Isser and pull it out. How will it be mevatel? Shishim. Shishim, I can say, even though that the Chayre, I can say, still look where the Isser is and pull it out. So the Rabbanu says, if there's 60 times of heter versus a small amount of Isser, then I'll consider it as Eile Takona. I have no way to find it. But that's a second reason why the Chacham says min be'eini mina yavish b'yavish need shishim. Again, there's two reasons. The first reason why yavish b'yavish dry. Why don't need shishim min be'eini mina? Because shem yavashlan. If I'm going to cook it, it will give flavor. Even though now I'm not cooking it, Chacham says if you might cook it, it might give flavor. So now have shishim. One reason. A second reason is that not the reason because now there's a mixture of min be'eini mina. It's two different minim. Don't try to recognize which is the Isser and pull it out. So therefore, the Chacham said, but if shishim of heter is 60 times of heter versus the Isser, then I'll consider it that Eile Takona, you can't find it and you can't pull it out. Shishim is even this back.
You really should pull it out no matter how much.
Yes, if you recognize
Then
it.
you're good.
Yes, we had the case. We had the case with the fats. You got to cook. You let it cool down. You remember that case?
Oh, Jill.
Yeah.
If you pull that, you don't need sushi.
Right. You need shishim a tam. If there's a taste, you need
You
shishim.
still need sushi. No, it's not because it's in transfer.
Oh, it's right. This is correct.
So
Sorry.
the only reason of saying the shishim is because
Shemi Yavashlim or Takon.
no, the talking the second one. Just to
Takon. So this is basically the entire which one is we just mentioned here? The Shach of Kotnichov Aleph, the long Shach. That's he is explaining the Kudah is explaining his machloikis. He's arguing with the Ramah. That the Ramah says that choizev and neir, even in the case of yavish b'yavish, where there's no transfer of taste, even in the case of min b'min, no transfer of taste, he argues it does not make sense. Choizev and neir says the shach is only when it's transfer of taste. Then I can say more taste came to it. Now it's choizev and neir. Argue with the Ramah. Yes. The Rambam said Loishna, all 4 cases, all 6. Right. No, Shach said if it's no transfer of taste, there's no choice v'neir. If it's min b'minay, yes, in this battle. No, the old shishim. Yeah.
The rice for Mino is also raw.
Correct.
And the thing with
The rice, but min b'minay, by which one?
Rabbanim is raw, but also the rice is raw.
By which one? By Yavish?
The Yavish.
Yavish is the rice and the Rabbanon is right.
Okay, and then the other one where you said it's a kind of that's just a shtick that if you don't find the piece, then you say, well, now I can't do anything about it unless I'm 60.
Correct.
And then I'll just let it go.
Right. So in other words, the Torah said Roiv. The Torah says Roiv. The whole question is the Gemara when Yevamah says, how does a person know who his father is? How does a person know who his father is? The whole proof that a person knows who his father is, the Gemara says the Roiv. Roiv bilis achrabao. Most times the woman had the relationship with her husband. So the Gemara, the whole concept of who the father is, and the Gemara in Yevamah talks about a case of Miseh, that if a son hurts his father and he draws, and because they did, he draws blood out of his father, the son gets capital punishment. But how do you know that's his father? It's also Roiv. So Roiv is a strong thing, even though you can say maybe not. It's still a miyut there. Yeah. Yeah. Because the father is only a Roiv. Yeah. Okay. Sorry? Again?
The person doesn't inherit Hashem, takes it away. He says, you're good. I'll take 10 to size.
Good.
You do it again tomorrow. He now adds, you know what? I'm going to add it back to the one you did yesterday, and now you're no good.
If I is asking a good question, if a person does an Aveda and does tshuva, he does tshuva, and then next week he does the same Aveda again. Do we say Choiz V'neir to the priest Aveda or not? Actually, the only case we have that's brought down that any time a person does an Aveda, he gets punished for that Aveda, and a little bit about the Egel that we did. So the Egel, even though the Eibush said Salachti Kitvarecha, forever and ever, when the Eibush punishes the Klal Yisrael, he's going to always add a little. What? But he's asking a practical question. A person did an Aveda, he did Shuvah, and a week later did the same Aveda again. So we have it Al Treb Tanya. Al Treb Tanya says, Echtoi v'oshuv. A person says, I'll do an Aveda and I'm going to do Shuvah. Eima speaking beyond the last Shuvah. The Eibush is not going to give you the ability, the chance to do Shuvah.
I would think amazing.
Right. Dochak, the Rebbe said in Tanya, that the Gemara does not say that. But even in the Gemara said, Eima speaking beyond, but there's still a chance that you can do Shuvah. That's been amazing. A person did b'shegig. There's the Rebbe says in Tanya. Why do we say Slach Lanu and davening Shacharis, and then it comes to Mincha again and say Slach Lanu, and to Maariv against Slach Lanu? Said the Alter Rebbe because between one davening and the other davening, you might have done the same Aveda again, and you're gonna ask you Slach Lanu. Otherwise, what do you? The Rebbe says Bracha Batola. Between each davening, we ask Slach Lanu. Good question. What? Make an ego. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we'll continue now to Ramah, a third paragraph of the Ramah. The printer is page 43. Look at this case, a very practical case. Kizayis cholov, let's call it an ounce of milk, shenafal l'mayim, fell into water, v'nisbatel b'shishim. 60 ounces of water versus 1 ounce of milk. So the milk is bottled. Now there's Now there is a water that has in it an ounce of milk. Okay, it's good. Now this water fell into my cholent pot. Do I say chayzer v'nei or not? Do I say this water had milk in it now it fell into my cholent pot? Says that mutter, it's mutter. Why? Because the water has the milk in the water is this bottle. I just want to mention a chumrah that later that the Acharayim say if there's still a color of milk, if there's chazusa, if the color of white to the water, then there might be a problem. Usually, it should not be. Shishim is mevatel everything, but we have the din in Mishnayos and Mikvos. If you put milk in a mikveh and it changes the color, is a problem. It might look like shuvin. Okay. Mutter, afal pi she'ein bebosor shishim neged acholov. Even though now the cholent pot does not have shishim keneged the cholov or other chelim shati, not cholov keneged the water, the mixture of water that fell into my pot now. There's no shishim now of my cholent. I make a small cholent pot, and a cholent pot does not have shishim of the water that fell now. It's okay because the water has milk in it. Sharein is bottled by mine. I don't need shishim because the water, milk is bottled in water. The whole creation was there. So you ask you why is the mutter? You ask why it's mutter? Yeah.
How much liquid you take out of this pot, it's going to be 1/60th of the liquid is milk. So if you take a cup out, you take a handful out, a spoonful out. It's always 1/60th of whatever is in that.
So how do we explain shishim? Bitul shishim means once it came in there, the whole thing is mutter. Correct? So the ounce of milk fell into 60 ounces of water. This whole mixture is mutter. Is this mixture milchik? Is this mixture milchik? Oh. Okay. A very good question. The shach will explain your answer. The shach is going to explain that there's a klal that heter beheter loy bottle. The concept of bittul is only when I have an isser and a heter. But two heters is not bottle. Where do we learn that in? The shach is gonna say, look as soon as Reish Sadik test. It doesn't tell us what it's talking about, but I'll tell you what it's talking about. Siman Reish Sadik test is talking about shatnez. Shatnez means if I have a beged that's woven together, wool and linen, correct? You're not allowed to wear this beged. So the Shechonah is going to ask you a question. I have a complete wool garment and one thread of linen. Why don't I say it's bottle b'reiv? That one thread is bottle b'reiv in the whole beged. It's a bottle b'reiv. And never we know the din is they check the lapel, they check one thread. Awesome. So the Mechaber says, you know why? Because there's no such a concept of bittul heter beheter. Heter beheter, there's no bittul. Bittul is only when there's isser beheter. So it brings an ayah that in shatnez we don't say bittul. Linen is mutter and wool is mutter. So we're putting it together. There's no bittul here. That's why when it comes together, even as one thread, it's awesome. Sure. Okay, good. Okay. Mashakin, he's asked, what's the chiddush over here? Here says the shach, the chiddush is, even though there's a concept of ein mevatel heter beheter, so I would think the same thing is over here about the milk. When the milk fell into the water, there's no bittul here. Now that it came in contact with meat, there's a problem now. And the previous 60 ounces of water did not make a bittul because heter beheter is not bottle. I might have thought that, says the shach, that's the chiddush. Even though ein mevatel heter beheter, here we do say that. But the milk we do say that. Why? Yeah. Correct. Not according to Ramah. So here, so what? So that's what I want to explain over here. What's the shach zog? So the shach is explaining the chiddush over here that we do say that the milk is this bottle. Why is that? Why is it the milk different than shatnez? A shatnez is saying the one thread is not bottle, and here the milk is bottle. What's the difference, Taka? So the answer is basar b'cholov. Shatnez, the Torah says, semer gmalim semer. You have wool and linen pishton. The connection is also. It's colliding. The connection is also. So the Torah said the connection is also one strand, one thread is also. When it meets together, also. So even though each one on its own is mutter, it's also just like basar b'cholov. I think the first year we spoke about the Rebbe brings a reason of basar b'cholov. It's colliding. But here, by the water and the milk, what happened? The milk fell into the water. There's no negative connection over here. It's all good. If you want, drink it as it is. So that's why it's bottle. It's not like shatnez where we say it's not bottle. Because shatnez, the Torah says, semer and pishton, yagdom is no good. So therefore, there you ask a question, why it's one thread of pishton. It's not bottle because that's the Isser. Like we say by basar b'cholov, each one is kosher. Together, not kosher. However, the milk and the water, when the milk fell into the water, it's this bottle. There's no contact of negative here. So it's this bottle. Here we don't say ein this bottle heter better. When do we say ein this bottle heter better? When now it becomes an Isser. Sure. Yeah. Here's also was with the milk. Good question. You see, yeah, you're asking about basar b'cholov, why did the Chacham? And the answer to that is that since the Torah says 3 times l'sevashel, and one of the times is bishul, so the Chacham Galetim Sech Chulin, that the Torah meant that the Isha basar b'cholov, which came in contact, only when there's taste. And there's no taste. Why? Because shishim, they're not Isha. So the Chacham learned from the third l'sevashel is a kula. That it has to be derech bishul. If derech bishul means transfer of taste, no transfer of taste is not Issa. Mashenkin over by shatnez.
Not regular, as if you have at least 1 carrot that falls into 60 sweet potatoes, you're going to say the flavor of the carrot is bottom because that's the reality. It's a flavor with diluted.
Yeah.
You only say that has to have design on the bottom when there's an issue that
Exactly. Shatnez. Yeah. Good.
In other words, you're saying is that the water has shishim connected to color, never milk just as it.
It's not milky now. Now it's not milky.
Not milk.
Not milk.
It's
It's not only that, the Shach is going to say that once the ounce of milk fell into 60 ounces of water, lechatchila, you're allowed to put this water into the chum. The Shach says you can't do lechatchila. You can't put the milk into water and be kavana to put it into the meat. But if the milk fell into the water, so the Shach says not only if not fall into chidesh b'asar, now lechatchila you can put it into b'asar because now this water is not milky. Which one? It's not milk anymore. It's not milk. Once it's about, it's not milk. Yeah.
If it wasn't a spot on the water, let's say there's only 30 days in the water, right? It wasn't bottled. The water came up. How much do you need again? Just the share milk or the sugar? Because both of them is not clear. You need against the color against the mind.
You can't. You get a cholov because there's no issues. There's no chatich and asan veil over here. It's heter.
You need an additional 30 days in the chunk.
No, but the water does not become also. It's not issues. It's not.
So what is the frame saying about the 60 naked hamayim of the color? You said something.
That when it says over here, the alpha what's the chiddush? Alpha that the chol part doesn't have 60 connected the original water, original milk, or that the water that's fell now. Different learns to check. Just that it brings it an alpha peep shot. Right. Okay, Sif Zayin. Sif Zayin is a new chiddush din. A Chiddush Din will be the Sugi and the Gemara is talking about a keli that's always used b'shefa, which means it's not a small pot, it's a barrel. You always use there an abundance. So what's the Chiddush? Let's say the Isser came into this pot a drop, but the regular usage of this pot is always for an abundance of heter. So the heter, the abundance of heter, when I use it my normal way of using it, it's never, the Isser is never going to give a flavor to the heter, because the way of using this pot is always going to be an abundance more than the Isser. And we learned earlier, Adin, by the honey and the bee. If I want to cook the honey, not because I want to be mevatel the bee that's in the honey, I want to cook the honey because you take it out, it's morse. So my kavan is not to be mevatel, that's not called ein mevatel isachatchila. Same thing here. I want to use my barrel. My barrel has a little absorbed a little isser. The while I'm using my barrel in my good old way to put a roiv, a ribi of shefa, do it your way. Derech Agav says battle the isser. Let's look Siv Zayin. No, I'm not by the honey. I'm not, I didn't add water. I'm cooking.
So then why did your mabak? All you're doing is changing its structure.
But now I'm cooking. Now I'm cooking the bee. Before it was cold, so the cold didn't transfer. But now I'm cooking it, so now the bee flavor gave itself a non-kosher flavor into the honey.
Yeah. But that's not why.
What's the reason? Because
my kavana is not for that. My kavana is take it away. Which case? Okay, let's learn a sif inside. This is a chiddush of the Rashba. The Rashba comes up with chidushim. We had the Rashba talking about the yerek. You can kash it. There's a vegetable in between. So the Rashba has a chiddush here, and the chiddush is gonna apply in 3 dinim. Look at this din. Siv Zayin. Im nivla iser muet v'toich kli kosher. Now I want to tell you that many other Shulchan Aruch it says kli basar, but the correct is kli kosher. If a small amount iser muet was absorbed in a kosher keli, so far so it's simple. Okay, continues now the Ramah, the Mechaber. Im darkai shall oise kli. If the regular usage of that keli shall oise kli lishtamish by b'shefa heter, that keli is a big keli, an army pot, a barrel that when I don't use the army pot to cook myself a cup of water. This pot, barrel, it's always used for a shefa, for an abundance of heter. Muter lishtamish by lechatchila. I'm allowed to use this keli lechatchila. Why? Since the Isser that it's absorbed is a drop, and that drop of Isser can never give taste to the abundance of heter that I'm using in this pot. It can't. It's a little bit Isser. Yes.
People tell me, I need a small light bulb. How small? How long is a piece of string?
Compared to the pot that you're using. Well, I'll soon give the example. I'm going to continue. Let me give the dinim. Because just like by the honey, my intention was not to mevatel the Isser Mur. My intention, I'm using my regular usage. And by the honey, but the while I'm cooking the bee together with the honey. Before I took out the bee, it came also. Let's learn the 2 dinim. What?
Do you know these was there before you pour the pot?
The chef, yes, he said you allowed to do lechatchila.
No, you know.
Okay, let's learn the dinim. Look at the dinim that the Mechaber says that the Rashba is Mechaber. V'lefichoch, din number 1. You can make it number 1. Isur, look at it. It says Isur Mashu, a small Isur. It seems like a repetition to what he just said. Isur Mashu shenivla bigdata that's absorbed in a pot, oy b'tech kankanim, or in kankanim. Kankanim means jugs of oil or wine. Interesting. in the Sefer HaOruch says something very interesting. Now you have to, we'll ask Rabbi Yosef here. He says that in Spanish, the jug that keeps wine is called can. Sefer HaOruch. But and the Eden adopted that language, that can means for oil, for wine or oil. But in order not to sound Spanish, they doubled it and called can. Sefer HaOruch says that. Okay, can are jugs or pitchers that's made to use wine. Okay, it's there. Again, Isur Mashish and evil big data, and Isur that's absorbed in a pot or in the jugs. Okay, it's been mutter, leishtamish by lachatchila, you're allowed to use the kei lachatchila. Even today was used for the Isur Mu'at. The fishy Yasher love it in this time. One Kiddush in the Rashba. And Isur Mu'at fell into a pot that usually it's used in b'shefa. Go ahead and use it b'shefa because the Isur is never going to have a chance to give taste to the shefa. Second din, Aval. Look at the second din of the Rashba. Aval im nivla bekli shedarke l'shtamish l'pi'itim b'davar mu'at. However, if this keli is sometimes used for a small amount, kekaya like a bowl, okay, then you're not allowed to use this keli even by an abundance. Why? Maybe you can use it in a smaller amount. So far, the Mechaber says two chidushi dinim came out from this Rashba. The Rashba learned it has a din that what's the din of the Rashba? An Isur Mu'at that came into a pot, fell into a pot. If the pot is a large pot, a kli godel, that's always used for an abundance, and if the Isur could never have a chance to give its flavor to the abundance, it's mutter. You're allowed to do lachatchila. I just want to mention the source of this Rashba. But before I go to the source of Rashba, please look at the Shach Chov Gimel. Shach Chov Gimel. Yes. On page, said the Shach of Gimel, Im Nivla, this whole sif says the Shach, Kol Hasif Hazeh Hu Kafel. This entire sif is repeated twice in Shulchan Aruch. Why? The Kamon Simukuf Chav Beis Sifei, in Simukuf Beis, it said exactly the same sif. V'shom Yisbar V'siyat Yishmai. There I'm going to explain it. So we can go according to this, say, over there we're going to explain the Kuf Chav Beis is talking about the Hilchos Machos Asuros and Kashrus. Now this line of the Shach, and he sends us to Simon Kuf Chav Beis, is going to pass in there exactly what the Taz has in this whole long Taz. What does the Taz tell us in a long Taz? Before telling you what the Taz says, I want to mention the three chidushim of the Rashba. The Mechaber says two chidushim, there's a third chidush. The first chidush of the Rashba is, let's first give the mocker of the din of the Rashba. Where does the Rashba take this din? There's a Gemara in Masechta Verisor. The Gemara says, "Kan kanim shel yayin shel goy." If you bought barrels that a goy had, that probably came with the whole problem of this cherry barrels. The Gemara says, "Mahu, am I allowed to use these barrels?" So the Gemara says, what happened there? I had barrels of wine, and I bought it from the guy, and I filled it up with water. I rinsed it with water. Can I use it now later on? Says the Gemara, yes, you can use it. You can use it, and not only that, but the water is also kosher. And the Gemara says, water is okay, and by mistake, somebody asked a shayla about the Rav, can I put in water? He says, yeah, and the guy went ahead and put in sheikh and put in beer. So we have a case that the Gemara says, barrels of wine, goyish barrels of wine, you put in water, it's okay. Why? So the Rashi will shot the issue of the wine, the goyish wine absorbed. How did it absorb in the barrels? It's not hot. It's not hot, right? Okay, good. So he says the way it's absorbed, because it's really not cooked. The most it absorbed is kedei klipa. The most it absorbed, because it's not hot, it could be it's kavush, but the most, says the Rashba, the most absorbed is Kedei Klipa. And by rinsing it, maybe you need twice rinsing it, that Kedei Klipa flavor is out. Now it's a kosher barrel. That's for that din, that's a Gemara. From that din comes the Rashba, says, hey, just like we learned from the Gemara that the wine, Goyish wine absorbed in a barrel. Since it's only a little bit, it's mut. I'm allowed to use something with shefa, heter. So to every yisur, kol yisurim, chiddush Rashba, kol yisurim, any yisur. A second chiddush says, if the keli is sometimes used for a small amount, chumrah, you cannot use it. So the first chiddush is a kula, and the second chiddush is a chumrah. The kula is if the keli is always used for an abundance amount, you can use it. The second is the chumrah. If it's sometimes used for a smaller amount, you cannot use it. Chumrah. A third chiddush of the Rashba, which the Taz will bring down, is if I have a wooden barrel. Look, in today's time, the wine is kept in wooden barrels. I have a wooden barrel that absorbs the yain esach. Since I have to kasher it, I want to kasher, I want to do the right thing. So it says, how do you kasher wood? It says, you want to kasher your barrel, shave it. Shave it. Why? Because the Rash will learn Pshat that the wine, the most it absorbed, only they clip it, didn't go any deeper. So if I shave the barrel, it's okay, I'm kashering 3 dinim here. Comes now the Taz, and again, attacks the Rashba. How do you learn your din from that Gemara? We know wine, any other liquid that gets in contact with wine ruins the wine. When wine is mixed with another ingredient, it ruins the wine. So he says that Gemara is talking about that I have liquid or even water that I put into the barrel of wine. So the wine that's absorbed in the barrel became potent right away because the liquid, the water, or anything I'm putting in now kills the wine. But how do you learn this din by different isur? Not by yain esur, but different isur. Have a keli, which the Raja said a keli that's absorbed with a little bit of chaylev, a little bit of tam, and it's a big keli, it's mutter. How do you learn that? So the Taz kind of disproves the whole raya of the Rashba. And the Taz says, Eina Chanami, that the Rashba's din, he doesn't agree with it. He passes it otherwise. The Rashba learned from that Gemara that every Isur says wrong. However, he says, since the Rashba is more machmir, so let's lechatchil be machmir according to Rashba. But the apidin, he says that the din is wrong because the whole reason why there you're allowed to use the kankanim is because you're poigim the yayin, the flavor that's absorbed in the walls is pogim. But he said, I'm saying Mekel. Rashba here is Mekel. He said the Rashba has a chumrah and a kula, right? The chumrah is that a small part. It's cool. That's why he said the let God's because the marker at bottom is from the kankanim, the Gemara Berizorah, by yayin it ruins it. It's pogrom, and he used a new loshon. Not only it's pogrom, he says the new taste, the new liquid, soyref as tam hayayin bim koimoy. It's not doesn't pull it out. It kills the taste of the wine that's absorbed in the pot at its place. It's not shot. You have an abundance of heter, and it pulls out the isur. No, it kills it at its place right away because yain, any other flavor, is save time of yain. Well, we learned an opinion that coverage is only there's another opinion that just like by coverage is machlekes. By maliach we know the klipa, but coverage is machlekes. Right. You still should have poured over that side because then you're allowed to list with them. Correct. But according to here, you're allowed it because my intention is not to be allowed to list with them. Okay. So there. That was the shot. Yeah. Right. So he's saying there, talking about. No, he's saying if I'm pouring it over that, because I have another eitzah, so that's what side? Yeah. Right. But again, this whole sif said the Shach, wait till the Hilchos Macholos Asuros, and we'll explain it there. Understand? Yeah. Mar Baleim go to Mechaber.
That's exactly what you're doing here. It's not no fumatzme. You're throwing it in. You're being the battle is
But with a different one, that's the catch over here. It was a kasha.
You have to use the water afterwards. If it's been given and you put it in the shisha, you're allowed to.
Yeah, even the head, you can do it within a day.
Even Ben Game, I have to be doing the weapon. That's how you come on.
That's the way I can do it.
Yeah. You have the same challenge. You're putting it in its
That's why the lochi, the water where you magil has to have shishim.
Right. And you shouldn't use it.
Because there's the one over here, I think could be. I don't know which Siman. There's one over here, one over there. I don't know which one they are. There's the one, no? So the Shach in Kuf Chav Beis said the same thing the Taz over here. That the mocker of the Rashba is you can't learn from the Yayin to every other Isur. Okay, we'll do Siman Kuf. The next few Simanim Kuf Kuf Beis are going to talk about cases that don't become bottle. Earlier we learned about bittul b'shishim, and then we learned about that a kal is bittul kal is this battle with what bittul b'59, an egg is a bittul b'61, right? And then we have arlo is a bottle b'masayim, trum is bottle b'meya. Now we're going to learn next few Simanim cases where it don't become bottle b'elef. The first case is a beria. Beria means a creature of its own, a whole beria, a whole ant. An ant can be as tiny as a barley. Nevertheless, there's no kazayis there. It's awesome. Okay, let's do beria. Siv gimel. Siv kuf. Beria. The heinik you go in nemolo. Nemolo means an ant. Oif tame or small little bird. A small little bird could be a fly, a flea, a mosquito. The gid hanosha. Gid hanosha means the sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve. Why is it called a beria? Because the Shach is going to explain. Because it came from life, it had life, it was a part of an animal. He's going to give the example. A limb of a living animal. If you took the limb, that's called the beria. Okay. An egg that has a chick inside. That's a beria. A similar such cases. The Shach is going to say, how about an egg that has a blood in it? So he's going to bring a machlokes. The Shach is going to say that his opinion is whether it has blood in it or it has a chick, it's not a berry. He argues with the Mechaber here. But with blood, it's sure not a berry. Okay, each of them, I feel even if it's 1,000, it's not bottle. Now the Achrayim ask a question. When it says be'elef, how about if I have 1,500? Is it Yemen's bottle? Machlokes. Because sometimes you use expression I feel be'elef bottle, and sometimes you use expression also b'mashu. When you say a feel elef means elef is the max, and if you have 1,500, it does become bottle. The Taz is going to explain over here. Where do we get this idea that a beria is not bottle? So the Taz says simple. The Torah says you're not allowed to eat a worm. Now we know a worm is smaller than a kazayis. Nevertheless, the Torah says by worms, by shkotzim and ramosim, even if it's a smaller amount, there's still isla sechelu. So we see that by these kind of insects, the Torah made the Easter even less than shear. Since the Torah made Easter less than shear, so the Chum says, okay, we're also going to do something to make it different, which is don't become bottle. A bear doesn't become bottle. The Chum learned from the Din, the Torah says the bear doesn't become bottle. The Taz says it's Rabbanan. The Taz says all these dinim of berile bottle, ruil skabele bottle, minaminile bottle, it's all Rabbanan. The man of community says the Taz. The nafkamina is if it's a suffix, if it's a barrier. If it's a suffix, it's a barrier, then a suffix Rabban Lakula. If it's a Vadai barrier, but a suffix, if this is Isur or not Isur, right? Then it's suffix that Isur. Because Vadai barrier. Two different kind of suffix. If it's a doubtful, if this is a barrier or not, right? So so what do we say there? It's Lakula. If we know it's for sure a barrier, but the question if this is an Isur barrier, suffix Rabban.
You just say cool for both of them.
No.
This time, second time around.
It's still always a Rabbanan, because
The difference is the Taz. You know, when the Taz quickly inside Taz Aleph. Let's go Taz Aleph.
this is part of Hashem's
Yeah, Taz Aleph. Beria. Look inside quickly. The Hainu Chashiv is the Beri. What's the reason of the importance of Beria? Shaloiti Betelehi Midrabanon. Kivish Me'aterich Yesh. Why did Rabbanon made Chashiv? Kivish Me'aterich Yesh Chashivas. The Leikin Ala Chilos Afili Pchus Mikazais. You get Malchus even less Mikazais. The stomach sivits are minim tmein leisechel leisom afilim ktanim al kei nichmir rabbanim betarushilhem aval me'ateri b'telik yishari surim v'naf kamina li sofik I have a beria eloi if there's a doubt if this is called a beria or not have a second rabbanon in a bottle v'chei mechol ot vodim domlin lekamon she'ein b'telim kugayin royal iskabed of sheviminion aval I have a vada beria if it's for sure a beria. Or one of the other, next case, the royal iskabed of Sheminian Eloshah is a solving the question if this is also or not, but Zeh Philip Elf le bottle. Keep going. Bait says suffix treifer. An egg that I'm not sure if the egg is from a kosher bird or an egg came from a bird that's not kosher, it's treifer. I'm not sure. But the egg is a complete barrier. Continuing back to the Mechaber. Mechaber is going to give now, if you make please points here, the Mechaber is going to give 4 conditions that's going to make an item called a beria. Second paragraph of the Mechaber. Ve'ein le'din beria, it's not called a beria. Elim kain hu, unless, number 1, you can make a point. 1, davar shahoy bechayis, an item that had life to it. La fuke, to exclude, chita achashal yisr, 1 kernel of wheat. Even though the kernel is kalayim, as the Shach says, it's kalayim, but since it's kernel, it's 1 piece, it's a complete piece, but it's never had life to it, not a berry. Second criteria, second condition. It has to be an item that's also lachatchil, not became also. La fuke, to exclude, oiftar, a kosher bird, shenisnabel, that became an avela. So now the Easter happened now. It wasn't us. Oi, sheraniskel, a ox that gored and killed a person. Now you can't eat the ox, but beforehand it was a kosher ox. So it wasn't Easter lachatchila. From this case, says the Shach, he argues with the Mechaber before that gave an example of an egg. An egg is not also lachatchila. Why is an egg called a beria? An egg not also lachatchila. Okay, continue. The third criteria, third tonight. It has to be a complete thing. It has to be a complete thing that if you divide the thing, it changes its name. Chaylev is fats. Whether you have the entire piece of fat or a piece of it, it's called chaylev. However, says the Shach, if I take the gid anoshe, if I take the sciatic nerve, and I don't have the whole piece, I only have a piece of it, it's not called gid anoshe. Now it's called chatichas gid anoshe, a slice of the nerve. If I have the other case we had before of the Eiv Achai, if I take a piece of it, it's not called Eiv Achai, it's called chatichas Eiv Achai. Since the name changed, it's no good. That's Eiv Achai. The fourth thing is Torah Shalom. Now, don't think there has to be an item that was complete. Now, in order not to be in this battle, has to be complete. So the 4 conditions to consider Beri is: number 1, that had life to it. Number 2, that the Easter was from the beginning of birth, beginning of creation. This was Asur. Number 3, that if you cut it in half, it changes the name. Number 4, now it's whole. Continue down the Ramah. The Iker Giranosha, which is the part of the sciatic nerve? Only the sciatic nerve that's resting on the thigh. The who kereichav arbets boys. The whole thing is the width of 4 fingers. The mushalim, if you have the entire nerve, sciatic nerve, miklik bed is called a barrier. Now the Taz is going to say 4 fingers of the sciatic nerve is by an ox, big animal, but by a small shepsele, it's 2 fingers. You get an usher. Okay, Sif Beis. Not a chita. So an Eva Menachai is a liver, Eva Menachai. So Sif Beis. Davar Shu Berye, Shenis Bakla Maheter. I had a Berye that fell into Heter, and there was this basha was cooked with it. Im Eine Makira, if you don't recognize the Berye, Hakoil Osur, we just learned in the beginning. Berye Afilu Be'elef Osur. If you don't recognize, you can't pull, you don't know how to pull it out, the whole dish is Osur. But the Haroitiv, B'naisin Tam. You know what you can do? Haroitiv means the juice, the soup, the stew. What you could do is, what you're supposed to do, he says, take a sifter, sift out all the pieces of this pot, of this whole stew, take out all the meat, all the vegetables, and you obviously, you're going to take out the berry with it. What's going to be left is only the soup. And what's wrong with the soup? The soup maybe got taste of the berry, taste, you can use not till the shishim. So in other words, here the Mechaber says the new chiddush. Berry like bottle means the berry itself, but tam berry is bottle. Let me finish the. Okay. Sorry. So this Sif Beis is going to have 4 halachas. Please make the marks. The first halach is davar shu berye shenis batel in my head, shenis bashel in my head, im eini makirei hakolos. That's din number 1. Din number 2, the haroitiv, the soup, and nice and tam. If it's only soup, which means that you sifted out all the pieces, all the meat and the vegetables, everything out, only the soup, then you need only shishim can at the time. Rule number halach number 3. The makirei, if you recognize exactly where is the barrier, zoirkoi, you throw out the barrier, the rest of it, the rest of the meat and the vegetables and the rativ and the liquid, sort of shishim connected. That you can all use for shishim connected. What? Connected the flavor. Right. Chud, din number 4. Din number 4. Chutz megid hanoshe. Gid hanoshe, the sciatic nerve. The Gemara says has no taste. The sciatic nerve is like a piece of wood. It has no taste. It doesn't give taste. Chutz megid hanoshe she'ein time e'oser. So therefore, if you took it out, you're good, because any other isur berye, if you took it out, you have to shishim like the tam. Here, there's no tam. The aim begins in time. I will shamnei, but the sciatic nerve also has fats around it. In the visual, you have the picture. Oisid, the fats does aser. It's sort of shishim connected the. You have to have shishim in the rativ, in the soup, to be mevatel the shuman, the fats of the gidanosh gives taste. Okay, now this till now was a hagdom of the Mechaber. The next paragraph is actually Loshna Mishnah. Lefichach is Loshna Mishnah. A Mishnah in Chulim. Lefichach Yerech shenis bashel im gidei. The Mishnah says a whole thigh. How do you cook a thigh in one pot? I don't know. It must be a big pot. I took a whole thigh of an animal with the sciatic nerve and I'm boiling it together. In Makire, if you recognize the sciatic nerve, zerke, throw it away. The rest is mutter. When is it mutter? Im yesh by shishim kenegot shamne. If the rest of this cooking has 60 versus the fats of the gidanosha. But if you don't recognize which piece is the gidanosha, call hachatichas asuras. All the pieces are asur because afilu be'elef lebotl. Im yesh bikdeira shishim kenegot ashuman. If the pot, the content of the pot has 60 times versus the fats of the genosha, muter ha-reitiv. The reitiv is muter when you have to add a line. When is it muter? After sifting it, After straining it, then it's ready to mutter. There's no shishim, keneged the shuman, also the whole thing is also. Concludes now what? Okay. The whole sciatic nerve was crumbled and melted. You can't do anything with it. You can't recognize where it is now. Even though the Gid Nosh has no taste, but you have to be. It's there, so no taste to it, but nevertheless you have shishim from his back. Yes, yes, yes. It's like mina, yeah. Which one? Yeah, strain the piece, yeah. Yeah. So only those that are nicker together with the Gilanosha or with the Easter. That in other words, if the vegetables are, it's noticeable that they're different. That's not the same like the Easter. Right.
You don't know it's mixed up. You don't know what the piece is. You say all the pieces you can. Let's say the piece of meat is I don't this piece of meat is that piece of everything like that. But the vegetables.
The vegetables, okay. If it's noticeable that's different, it's vegetables. You see clearly, then it's okay. It's okay. What looks like right. Sif Gimel, Kedero Shel Morak, a soup pot. Shenofa Beria Venevda, you have a soup pot and a fly falls into the soup pot. What happens? A mosquito. Osher HaKoil. Venevda. Venevda is both words. Venevda means that you can't recognize the fly or that you have. In other words, if I know that the fly, I've taken out the fly, so then I need shishik and I got tam. Right? Okay, Sif Dalid, also din that's happens very often. The din is that when you have vegetables, today we're coming to Pesach, you have vegetables or lettuce or salads, you have to check for worms. You have to check for worms. And the klal is, if I found 3 worms in this batch of vegetables, the whole batch shouldn't be used. 3 worms, sorry? Chazak. 3 worms called chazak, it's this whole batch is full of worms. Well, that head of lettuce. Yeah. Okay. So look what happened over here. Sif Dalin. Yerakos mivushalis had cooked vegetables. Shanimtsu behem shalish teloim. I found in the cooked vegetables 3 worms.
Worms are even a little buggy.
Either. Hayerakos asurim. All the vegetables are awesome because I take a cloud that since I found 3, all of them are awesome. So one might ask a question. Let me check it. Okay, I found 3. Let me check all the rest of them and see if it's worms or not. And the answer is given once you cook the vegetables. Many times it says, the Mepharshim explain that the worm gets the color of the vegetable. You cannot tell the difference between the vegetable and the worm. You're not checking won't help now after cooking. Okay, but if you have the liquid that you soak vegetables in it and you want to use it, right? And in the vegetables over there, you had the worms, the water, misane or mutarin. You sift it, take out all the vegetables there, and the liquid is okay. Let's say you had meat that was cooking together with the vegetables, right? And the vegetables were found in worms too. The vegetable found worms, but the meat didn't find any worms in the meat. So the vegetable have a problem with, but the meat, wash it off. If they can, check it, or mutter, and it's mutter. Yeah.